How's it going, everyone? This is Paul Garcia of ProjectSpurs.com, bringing you the latest Project Spurs Vidcast over the San Antonio Spurs' 98-79 victory over the New Orleans Pelicans on Saturday evening in the AT&T Center, which was the Spurs' home opener. Be sure to visit ProjectSpurs.com, follow us on Twitter at ProjectSpurs, and follow my Twitter account at PaulGarciaPS. So before the game on Saturday morning, I had asked you all, the followers and the listeners, those that follow me on Twitter at least, who you predicted would win the outcome of the game between the Spurs and Pelicans. I put the Vegas odds. Vegas had the Spurs winning by 13.5 points. And so congratulations to the 28% of you who called the results, as San Antonio won by 19 points, which means that they won by more than 14. To be a part of this, I'm going to try to keep this going throughout the season, so do follow my Twitter account where I'll have the polls, try to get them at least early that morning, or even like the Miami Heat Spurs poll for Sunday is actually already up, so you can go vote right now. It's actually live. It'll close right before the game starts, and then in the next Project Spurs vidcast, I will make sure to put the results up there. So let's see how you do going against Vegas and their predictions. So to the game, the top three performers, two guys that have been in there pretty much each game so far through 3 games are LaMarcus Aldridge and Kawhi Leonard, which isn't surprising considering those are your 2 All-Stars for the Spurs. And the third guy who made his first time in there is Patty Mills. So let's go ahead and go into first with Kawhi. Kawhi finishes with 20 points on 12 shots, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, and he only played in 3 quarters, which was 28 minutes of play. Going into halftime, Kawhi only had 4 points. He was seeing for the first time this season very heavy double teaming action. Anytime he caught out of the post, the Pelicans chose to double him. If he tried to run a pick and roll, they would easily try to hard hedge and trap him. So they made him get rid of the ball. But here was a neat thing, was that Kawhi was actually very smart about where he put the ball and passed the ball. So he finishes with 3 assists, but that doesn't tell the full story. According to NBA.com's SportVU data, Kawhi finished with 4 secondary assists as well. So for those of you that do not know what a secondary assist is, it's known as like a hockey assist in basketball. So Kawhi's player A, he passes to player B passes to player C, and player C makes the shot. This is known as a secondary assist because Kawhi was the one who kind of started the first action as player A. So he did pick up 4 assists and 4 secondary assists and 3 assists. And then in the third quarter, he said after the game, he says, the first half they were basically trying to get the ball out of my hands, but then I was reading their game plan defensively. So by halftime, he kind of made the adjustment himself. And in the third quarter, he saw spots where he could attack them better, where the offense is spaced out more. And so he kind of just went off, started hitting threes, started driving, started hitting his mid-range shots, getting some free throws. So Kawhi ended up putting up 16 points in the third quarter. And then from there, the Spurs were basically almost up by 20, so Pop didn't have to play him anymore. As the bench could kind of keep the lead going. So he does finish with 20 points on just 12 shots Saturday night. LaMarcus Aldridge finishes with 12 points, 6 rebounds, and he too only played in 3 quarters, 25 minutes. Aldridge didn't have a great shooting night, 13 shots. He was being defended by Anthony Davis most of the night. But that's not the story here. The story has to be his defense. After the game, Coach Popovich said that the team wanted him to play Davis one-on-one without any help, just to see, it was more like an early test for Aldridge, and because Davis is missing some of his supporting cast. And so Aldridge actually did a great job against Davis. Davis finishes with 18 points, and it took him 15 shots, and he only got to the free throw line 8 times. So you have to credit Aldridge here. Defensively, Aldridge has the quick feet where he can prevent some of those drives from Davis. Against what's his name? The two Denver centers, Yusuf Nurkic and Nikola Jokic. Aldridge, those are very limber, big guys, 7-footers who don't have quick feet. So Davis could run around screens, could take them off the dribble. He couldn't do those kind of things against Aldridge. And then physically in the low post, Davis, Aldridge is a bigger body. He's more stout, so he can kind of do a better job of physically preventing Davis from posting on him as much as he did against the Warriors with Draymond Green, Zaza Pachulia, and some of their smaller lineups. So Davis did finish with just 18 points, and a credit that has to be part of Aldridge's defense. And then the other part C is that Davis had been playing his 3rd game, I think, in 4 nights. So it was, this is a lot of minutes for Davis so far. The next guy was Patty Mills, 18 points on 9 shots. 5 assists in 24 minutes, which is just 3 quarters as well. So before the game, the Spurs had announced that Tony Parker and Manu Ginobili would be resting the game because it was the first night of a back-to-back. Those guys are on the upper set of 30 already. So Mills started. Mills, did his job. He moved the offense. He pushed the pace. He spread out the floor with his 3-point shooting. He made 4 threes on 7 attempts. A lot of times when Kawhi saw those traps or those double teaming in the post, he would find Mills for threes. Aldridge found Mills a few times, and so did Pau Gasol whenever he would try to post up. So Mills really reaped the benefits of being on the floor with 3 guys who draw a lot of attention offensively. And one thing to note is that in the first 2 games against the Warriors and Kings, the Spurs' starting lineup hadn't been doing so well. In their limited minutes together. Through those first 2 games, just from a advanced stats perspective of points per 100 possessions. Against the Pelicans Saturday, with Mills in the starting lineup, the Spurs scored 40. They outscored New Orleans 49.9 points per 100 possessions with Mills there. The offense did very well, the defense did very well. Now it is just 1 game; it's 1 game sample size. The Pelicans compared to the Sacramento Kings and Golden State Warriors, they don't have like the talent level of those 2 teams. So it's too hard to read too much into that stat. Offensively, the Spurs shot 42%. They had a lot of open looks, but a lot of the times they didn't knock down their shots, especially when they were wide open a few times. So the game could have really been out of hand very early in the first half, but because they weren't making those shots, it didn't break open to the second half. San Antonio did knock down the 3-ball, 10 shots on 42% shooting, which would have been above league average last season. And then they made their free throws, 18 free throws. They weren't as aggressive in getting to the line, and a lot of that has to do with the Pelicans' defense and their game plan, preventing that kind of action. Now, because of a low shooting percentage, the Spurs didn't get a lot of assists. Only 21 assists on 35 field goals made. However, you could tell the ball was still moving though, because they did assist 60% of the time that they moved the ball, that they did score a basket. And then 10 turnovers for San Antonio for just 8 Pelican points. The turnovers are interesting because you have a lot of new guys. You have Pau, you have Patty starting with the unit. You have Lee, Dedmon, Lapovitola. A lot of these Simmons, a lot of these guys who haven't got a lot of minutes or even been in the system that long, and these guys still aren't turning the ball over that much, and that's a good thing for San Antonio. It tells you how crisp their offense is, how much that they're running their sets, they're finding early chemistry here 3 games into the season, that they're keeping these turnovers very low so far. The bench outscored New Orleans 34-30. It wasn't a glaring advantage, but they had production. Lee and Dedmon came off the bench and did their job. Lee with 6 points and five rebounds. Dedmon with 5 points and 6 rebounds as well. Dedmon had a very memorable block where one of the Pelicans' offensive players tried to score a layup over him, and he was right underneath the basket. Dedmon just basically 2-hand stuffed the ball back down and palmed it and got the board. Got the possession and kept moving on offense after that. And then one guy who really had a kind of like it wasn't a breakout game, but a highlight night was Nicolas Lapovitola, the Argentinian point guard. He came off the bench as Pop's main guy to back up Patty Mills with Parker out, and he did a great job. 2 times he crossed over the defender, not like a severe crossover where somebody falls to the floor, but he crossed him over, and the crowd really got into it. They really started cheering and got loud for Lapovitola. He threw a really nice chest pass to David Lee full court for a dunk. So he had some memorable plays, Lapovitola. And then with the Spurs gaining a 27-point lead, Pop got to play a lot of the younger guys at the end of the bench that aren't going to see a lot of playing time unless it's blowouts like tonight. Guys like Bryn Forbes, Davis Bertans, DeJounte Murray, they got to get some action as well. One notable thing about why I say that's notable, the 27-point lead, is that now in their first 3 games, the Spurs have built double-digit leads in each game. Against the Warriors, they were up by 29. Against the Kings, they were up by 11. And now against the Pelicans, they were up by 27. Now, this is key because last season I used to track this data about the largest leads, and the Spurs were basically building large leads, almost over 14 a game last season, and that basically led to 67 wins. So it's showing that they're building these leads, and they're able to maintain them throughout the 48 minutes when they do get there. Where their scoring came from, it's efficient again. Another efficient nights where it's 37% comes from the paint, 31 from the 3-point line, 18 from the free throw line, and then just 14 from the mid-range. So the Spurs last year were known as the mid-range team, the team that didn't want to go away from the mid-range. They embraced it. They're still embracing it. However, they have better shooters this year, or at least it's showing early they're shooting a better percentage. and they're attacking the rim more often. So they're more efficient areas are coming from the 3-point land and the paint and the free throw area. Defensively, the Spurs held the Pelicans to a very low percentage of 37%. The Pelicans don't have a lot of shooting, respectable shooting, should I say, on their roster right now. So, they were held to just 4 of 22 shooting from 3-point land for 18%. You saw several possessions on defense where Pop called a 2-3 zone defenses against the Pelicans, and that basically shows that the Spurs aren't worried about double teaming on Davis, or they didn't really double team, but just basically staying in the paint and collapsing that area rather than going out to the 3-point line. Where they were kind of giving New Orleans some of those 3-point shots, but the Pelicans obviously didn't reap the benefits of the open shots they were getting. The Pelicans only got 11 made free throws. 6 of those came from Davis. So San Antonio kind of kept them off the line pretty well. On the boards, the Spurs didn't have a huge advantage, 50-45 rebounding advantages, but they did limit the Pelicans from offensive rebounds to just 7. So that's not too many. The Pelicans ran a traditional set with Davis and Oshik or Davis and Agenza, and then if they went small, it was with Davis and Dante Cunningham. In transition, the Spurs did a very good job here, holding the Pelicans to 8 points, so less than 10 points. Transition points is always a good thing. Where the Pelicans' points came from, they mainly got them out of the paint. Like we said, they could have hit the 3. They got a few mid-range buckets, and then 14% from the free throw line. So really, they took away one of the strongest areas of any team, which is the 3-point shot, San Antonio's defense. San Antonio also did another thing that's notable was in the third quarter, they held the Pelicans to just 15 points in that quarter, and that's kind of where they got their separation with that 20-point lead. Thursday night against Sacramento, the Spurs had held a season low to 14 points against the Kings in the third quarter. So that's something that they're still doing. Like I mentioned in the last vidcast, even without Tim Duncan here, the Spurs are still having that ability to really, for 12 minutes, constrain a team, really keep them below 20 points. And that's going to be critical as the season rolls along. And of course, if the Spurs make the playoffs, that'll be another critical aspect, is to be able to turn into a 12-point quarter into a very locked down, tight quarter can always get your team back in a ball game, or it can get your team to take over a 20-point lead like they did against the Pelicans. After the game, Kawhi Leonard addressed one of the rumors that have been going around social media. After the Kings game the other night, DeMarcus Cousins had said that Kawhi kind of reminded him of Kobe Bryant, and then he mentioned that he had heard, keyword heard, that Kawhi had been working out with Kobe over the summer. Now, this rumor got a lot more attention because if you recall, when Kobe's last visit in San Antonio, I think it was in April or February, he had mentioned that Pop had told him, he wanted him to work out with Kawhi this past summer. So it was just something Kobe had said earlier before the summer even came. Well, Kawhi was asked about that Saturday night in the locker room, and he had this to say: "Nah, I didn't work out with Kobe. I don't know where that came from, but I wish I could have." And he says maybe next summer. So Kawhi definitely he confirmed that he did not work out with Kobe, but that he definitely would welcome that opportunity. And who wouldn't want to work out with Kobe Bryant? That's a great way to obviously enhance your skill set, is to work out with one of the greatest NBA players to play the game. So for now, Kawhi did not work out with Kobe, but that's something that we got at least the truth out of. Up next, the Spurs play Sunday at Miami against the Heat. It's the second night of a back-to-back. It's an early game if you're in Texas at 5 o'clock p.m. Do check projects. So if you haven't followed the Heat, they lost Dwayne Wade over the summer to free agency to the Chicago Bulls. Chris Bosh, obviously his situation is still up in the air. It looks like he's not going to play this season with his health condition. So do check projectspurs.com. On Sunday morning at 10 a.m. we have a piece coming out with John Diaz is talking to a writer from Hot Hoops, and in there the writer knows a lot about the Heat, so he really tells John about what the Spurs fans can expect from the Heat. Some of their young standouts like Justice Winslow, Hassan Whiteside, Tyler Johnson. So if you want to really get a grasp on the Heat before the game tips off, I definitely suggest you check out that piece with John in that Q&A piece. Lastly, do visit projectspurs.com. This past week we had a lot of great content go up. A lot of our writers did a great job. John Diaz, he's going to be following the bench this season, so he has this new series called Bench Briefing. So he examined how the Spurs their bench which is the juice unit, how they did against the Warriors and the Kings. Myself, I broke down, if you want to get into the X's and O's of the game, I did an About a Play series about the Spurs' three-pointer off the hammer screen versus the Kings. And two key elements there is that one, David Lee now makes the Boris Diaw pass in the this hammer pass, and the guy setting the hammer screen, which is something Thiago Splitter used to do and Tim Duncan a few times. It's now Pau Gasol setting that screen. So if you want to see how the new guys are how they're getting incorporated into the X's and O's of the game, do check out that piece as well. Jose and Ryan Tuesday had a new Project Spurs. Thursday they had a new Spurs cast. It's about 30 minutes, so make sure you listen to it. They did a great job of breaking down the Warriors game. Now, lots been written about the Warriors game. Obviously, it was something that nobody expected. But I really like what Jose had to say in there in one of the parts of the podcast where he talks about how offensively, the Warriors looked a lot like the Thunder on some of their possessions, where it was more so like one guy gets the ball and everybody else just stands around. And that's not what you're used to from Golden State, where they're supposed to be a team that cuts and moves and spaces and all these different things. And they kind of reminded Jose of the Thunder. And when I went back and watched some film, they actually did remind me as well of that. So he made a good point there. And lastly, do check out Tom Petrini's latest piece on Kawhi Leonard's MVP of new HEB commercials. So basically, he breaks down the three new Spurs commercials that came out on Thursday night, and he talks about how Kawhi was. He really talks in length about how Kawhi's acting role in that one of those pieces is really significant, and how I know it kind of reminds him of his career a little bit. So do check out ProjectSpurs.com. This is Paul Garcia signing out, and I'll see you after the Spurs Heat game for the next, or talk to you, I guess, for the next Project Spurs vidcast.